Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guest is Hana Dolgin. She is a psychotherapist based in New York City who specializes in a problem many face eventually getting stuck. Hannah works with high functioning adults and couples who often look like they have it all together, but internally they are blocked. Whether it is a creative block, relationship anxiety, or just a feeling of emptiness, she helps them break the pattern. She uses a method called Gestalt therapy, which focuses heavily on awareness in the present moment. She's here to talk about why we get trapped in reactive loops, how to unlock your creativity, and how to find clarity when your mind is full of noise. Hannah, I am looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to FailCraft.
Thanks very much for having me.
It's great to have you here. So let's dive in, Hannah. You specialize in helping people who feel stuck, whether it's a writer who can't write or a couple having the same fight for 10 years. So, what's, yeah, so what's the very first sign that tells you a person is trapped in a pattern rather than just having a bad week?
Well, I mean, usually people come to therapy in the first place because they're feeling some dissatisfaction that's significant enough that they feel that they need professional help because, sometimes we think, "Oh, I can do this myself. I can figure it out. I can talk to a friend. I can read a book, whatever." But then there's some point where a person says, "Well, I guess I need professional help," meaning I need someone that has some insight, some knowledge, some angle that I myself cannot come up with. So, when people come in, of course, I ask them why they decided to come to therapy at this time, because there's something about what's happening in their life at this time that made them finally make that move. So each person's different, and I have to, find out from them how they perceive their situation.
All right. So, you practice Gestalt therapy. So, for those
Uh-huh.
of us who aren't therapists, can you explain what that is for us?
Okay, well, I'll just give you a few little pointers. Obviously it's a broader thing, but one of the things we talk about in Gestalt is about how our needs, our unmet needs, organize our perception of reality, meaning that, let's say you're very hungry. When you walk down the street, you're going to be noticing supermarkets, restaurants, people eating in the street. You're looking for food, so food is going to be the driving force that's organizing what you notice and what you don't notice at that moment. And let's say after you had a good meal, you're not hungry anymore. So then you're not going to be so attuned to the food situation. Let's say you're feeling lonely, then you'll be noticing, couples walking together, families, people talking to their friend. Like you'll be noticing the human contact based on the need that you have for that context. That I think is a very simple but foundational thing to realize that, at any moment we could be thinking about 10 million different things, but the thing we're thinking about has to do with something that we need, that we're looking for. So that might be why a movie that you saw affected you so much, or a particular character in the movie, a certain situation that you remember that really touched you. It has to do with something inside yourself that this is relating to. So, in that sense, when people come for therapy, I do need to get some information on their childhood, on their family, on how they grew up. But then ultimately, in the sessions, I'm guided by what they're talking about because I know that what they're talking about is related to the needs they have currently. And, that's why there's no need for me to usually tell a person, like, tell me what happened when you were 5 years old, because what they're telling me now is showing me where they're at right now. And yes, sometimes the things that we're dealing with now and how we deal with them definitely are related to experiences we had in our early life that shaped our notion of who we are and what's possible for us and how we should behave and how we should not behave, etc. But Gestalt is very much present oriented, meaning the idea, like I said, is that whatever unfinished needs you have will come up in the context of your current life. So that's one point that I wanted to make. And another one is, one thing I really liked about Gestalt therapy when I first encountered it was that it doesn't make people feel like something's wrong with them. Like, yeah, we all have problems, right? But basically, the idea is that all of us, when we were little, we had to adapt to whatever situation we were faced with in our early life. And our organism knows how to extract the maximum of what we need from a situation while trying to limit the harm. So there's something called organismic self-regulation, which means that our organism regulates itself. So, we all had to do that, and we still do that. Let's say you're in a job situation where, there's someone who's very tough with you and you don't think it's fair, but then at the same time, this person is your boss and you need their approval for keeping your job and whatever. So like, you make your choices as to how should I act in order to maintain my interest to continue to be employed, let's say, and to advance and whatever. And at the same time, I want to, of course, limit the negativity and the uncomfortable situations I'm in. So what I'm saying is that it always says we have a choice. We have the power to make choices, and we make choices. Some of them we make more consciously, and some of them less consciously. And when people come to therapy, you could say that they want to become more conscious because that's why they come to therapy, because they're not able to figure it out on their own. Whatever situation is troubling them, their efforts have not been satisfying them enough to say, I don't need therapy, So in that sense, they're looking to become more conscious of, how else could they do things? What other choice could they make? What else is possible that they didn't think about?
All right, thank you very much for clarifying that for us, Hannah. So you
Uh,
work with a lot of creatives in New York. So when, say, for example, an artist or an entrepreneur hits a wall, so
uh-huh.
is it usually because they run out of ideas, or is it because they are afraid of failing? I mean, from your experience, what's the more common reason?
I don't really know if there's one common reason. I think people are all, individuals, and some people might have some kind of self-imposed limitation. We all have like a comfort zone, and we think that we're comfortable with certain types of people or certain situations or a certain income level or a certain whatever. But actually, there's some part of us that wants more or wants something different. And sometimes we have a hesitation because we've never done this before, because we're not sure we're going to be accepted in this new situation or whatever outcome there'll be to our efforts. So, sometimes it's feeling confident enough to just say, I'm going to try. I don't know how it's going to go, but I am going to try, because staying where I am right now is not satisfying, and I need to do something, And maybe I'll try and it won't go well, or it won't go as well as I would hope, or maybe it'll go better than I thought. I think we all have a fear of the unknown to some degree. We don't sit and think I'm afraid of the unknown, but we all have things we're comfortable with that we've done before, and they worked well enough in personal relations and business and family relationships, whatever. And then we have the desire sometimes to try something different, and there's a risk involved. The risk is we might not be received well by the other side, or we might not get what we want, or we might be criticized, or we might feel that we're not capable enough, or whatever. So, we tend to avoid situations that might make us uncomfortable, but then that restricts us to continue to stay in the same circle all the time. So, usually the discomfort has to be big enough that a person is willing to take a risk. But also, that's like coming to therapy. There's a certain risk, in the sense of, what am I going to find out about myself that I didn't know? What if it's going to be something troubling? What if I discover, I have these shortcomings? Or what if I remember painful things that I put out of my memory? Or, there's a certain risk in exploration, right? But first of all, you have to remember, you always have control. You can, I always tell my clients, you have a right to be comfortable. If I ask you something that makes me uncomfortable, let me know. And, you know, nobody is forcing you to engage in anything. Like, obviously, you come for exploration, that's what you came for, but a person should always feel and trust that they have control. That means if something's too painful, they can withdraw, they can stop if they need a break, you know. So, because sometimes when we were young, when we were little, we didn't have control and maybe we were pressured into things that didn't feel right for us, or, we didn't want to upset somebody else. So we didn't want to say no, or we wanted to live up to someone else's expectations, and I think that part of being an adult is taking back your power, and realizing I have a choice. I can make my choice. It's up to me to decide what feels right to me right now.
Right, Hannah. So, you talk about moving from being reactive to making choices. That sounds great, but in the heat of the moment, it's quite hard for some people to do. So, how do we learn to pause before we explode or shut down?
Well, usually you explode or shut down a few times and then you realize it doesn't go very well. You're not getting, the situation doesn't go the way you like. And then you have to say, oh, I guess maybe I have something to do with it, because it's always easy to blame the other person, or, oh, it's because this happened or that happened, or, but really at some point we have to realize that, we're contributing to the situations we're involved in. Not to say that there's no other circumstances or other things that affect the outcome, but if we can control, our side better, at least we can make sure that we're doing the best we can for, to get what we want out of situations. So, like, in therapy, we can practice. We can practice, hey, how do you feel when you're imagining this conversation you're going to have with whoever, your boss, your friend, your spouse, your whatever, right? How are you feeling? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling, kind of like to have a practice, practice session where you start to realize, what you're bringing to the situation, right? Which is based on past experiences, right? Let's say in the past this topic was always explosive and it always caused an argument, and you feel like it's important for you to talk about it, but you don't want to go back to the same cycle where you don't feel understood, the other person doesn't feel understood, etc. So, that's the benefit of therapy. Is it's like a practice, it's like a rehearsal, and you're not obligated to actually say everything that you say in therapy to the person, you know what I mean? So you can express your anger,
Mm,
let's say, in therapy, and say, when you talk to me this way, I feel like you're treating me like a 3-year-old and I can't stand it and I hate it. Yeah. Doesn't mean that when you talk to them, you have to say all that. You might come already having released some of your anger, frustration, and then you can realize better that, this person is not your parent and they do have the right to have certain expectations of you or whatever. So like I said, therapy can be a practice where you can kind of go through your natural inclination to react, and then you have time to think about it and realize, hey, is that really helping me get what I want out of the situation? And you can also, have time to see, like, where is this reaction coming from? Is this really about what's happening now, or is this about, with, like, in relationships, people, when you've been with someone a long time, you may have past resentments about something that happened 5 years ago or 2 months ago or whatever. Other things that make you come to this conversation already assuming certain things are going to happen or certain reactions from the other person or whatever. So, like, therapy gives the opportunity to, like I said, to, like, practice, to try it out in your imagination and see what comes up and see how you tend to react and see how you feel with that. Is that really what you want to say? Do you think if you act this way, you're going to be able to get your point across, or, whatever the outcome is that you're looking for, whether it's more emotional closeness, whether it's a business transaction, whether it's, a creative endeavor, whatever it might be. Like, I'm also a musician myself. I'm also a performing jazz saxophonist. So,
wow.
like, there's a lot of musicians that are great at their creativity, but they're not good in business, right? They don't like to
Mm,
negotiate about money. They don't like to ask, some people, they have a hard time asking for conditions or believing that they deserve to be treated a certain way or whatever. So, that's something to work on too, because you can be the greatest artist, but if you can't promote yourself or make deals or agreements, and also abide by your own agreements, be on time, you know, do what the client asked you to do, not what you feel like doing, et cetera, then you're not going to be able to have a real world, opportunity to show your creativity and to share it and to make a living at it, let's say.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that. So,
Yeah.
Hannah, for the listener who feels completely blocked right now,
Yeah.
maybe they just cannot move forward, maybe from with a particular project or with a decision. So, what's one small thing they can do today to loosen that knot?
Well, I guess one thing is to think about times they were able to do things to their satisfaction, maybe in the past, however they got to this point. Like, look back at a time when you did do something, whatever it may be. You were able to write your book or write 5 pages or read in front of an audience or I don't know, whatever it may be in your particular case. Think back at a time you were able to do some of whatever it is that you're blocked with now. So first of all, just to encourage yourself and realize that you have done it already in the past. So you should be able to do it again at some point, right? And maybe to
Mm.
remember the feeling, what it felt like to be able to fulfill that creative side of yourself, you know, how it felt at that time. I guess that might revive, the emotions, the excitement, and the trust that you have done it already. So this is not something, you're not going to walk on the moon. You've never been to the moon. You've never walked on the moon. There's no gravity. Like you have done this before, you know? Maybe not at the same scale or maybe not, you know, at the same level. I don't know, whatever we're talking about, but it's not completely foreign to you. So you're not that far from it like you might feel at this moment. Like, oh, this is impossible. I can't. No, you have already taken steps and done parts of what you're looking at right now. It's not that foreign to you really. And so maybe that can like diffuse, some of the blockage, some of the fear, some of the feeling of impossibility, because I mean, we're all human. We're not that different from each other. We sometimes build up in our mind, a feeling of like other people won't understand or, whatever. Like, really, people are people. They're not, some people have more power in terms of decision making, money, whatever, but like, we're all pretty much the same. So, also, if you get rejected, whatever it is you want, you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's disappointing, it's frustrating, but really, that person cannot tell you who you are and what you're capable of. You might not be what they're looking for right now, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you don't have something valuable to contribute or you don't have talent or you don't have whatever, it's just a situation. It's not a judgment on who you are and it doesn't mean that no one else in the future will be happy to receive what you're offering them.
All right. So, Hannah, I have a personal question for you.
Yeah.
After guiding so many people through their darkest blocks to find clarity, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
For me, I feel like being able to do things that are meaningful to me, that I enjoy, that I feel I'm contributing to others, and I can also sustain myself doing these things, that makes me feel successful because, like, I believe life is precious. As you get older, you realize it's not forever. Like, your time is precious. And I am happy that I'm able to spend, most of my time doing things I love, I enjoy, and are also contributing to others. And they challenge me and they make me use my creativity and my understanding of people, understanding of life, and it's I don't like repetition. So one thing I like about therapy is it's never the same. Every session is different. I never know what's going to come up, and it's like jazz improvisation. That's how I see it because I'm a saxophonist and I love to improvise. So I feel like there's a lot of similarity between, the improvising I do in music and with people. So I love that. It gives me pleasure. And I feel very gratified when people tell me in therapy they feel they're benefiting and their life is getting better. And just like I'm also very gratified when people tell me they enjoy my music and it makes them feel good. So that makes me feel like I'm in the right place and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
All right, that's really, really amazing. So, finally, Hannah, for our listeners who wants to learn more about your practice and perhaps connect with you, so Where is the best place for them to go?
They can either email me or they can leave me a message at 917 410 2320. Again, that's 917 410 2320. Or you can email me at hdolgin, that's HD like David, OLGIN .LP at gmail.com. So again, that's HDOLGIN .LP at gmail.com. So either way, I'd be very happy to hear from anybody who's interested in finding out more.
All right, Hannah, it's been a really interesting time having a conversation with you, and I am very excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to talk to you.